All right, welcome Door Grow property managers to the Door Grow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you are interested in growing in business and life, and you're open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a Door Grow property manager. Door Grow property managers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management business owners and their businesses. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. All right, today's guest, I'm hanging out with Jacob Mueller from Renjoy. Jacob, welcome to the DoorGrow Show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, Jason.
Glad to have you. So, Jacob, give us a little bit of your background in maybe entrepreneurism and how you eventually got connected maybe to rentals, property management, and then we can get into Renjoy.
Sure. Well, I won't give you the full backstory. It goes all the way back to a college class I took, but I really started getting into real estate right at the perfect time, beginning of ZIRP, zero interest rate era. And I was actually a commercial broker for a little while. I did about 6 months of leasing and realized I did not enjoy that. And so then I transitioned to a residential property management firm based out of Denver that focused on investors. When I joined them, Atlas Real Estate, they're in, I don't know, 5 or 6 states now. But when I joined them, they were only in Colorado. They managed maybe 2,500 doors. And I was kind of their regional broker in Colorado Springs, which is where I am. And they are now, I think, north of 10,000 units under management and have grown tremendously on the management side. But I learned a ton from these folks. I learned how to flip property. I learned to invest in real estate. I learned a lot. And so that's kind of where my real estate investing career started. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, I've acquired single family homes, some small multi-units, and then I've also diversified in my income streams from just long-term tenants to also short-term tenants. And that's kind of where the story of Renjoy begins. One of my clients that I worked with as a broker happened to have quite a few Airbnbs, short-term rentals. And he was buying properties like every 6 months. And I was trying to figure out, how is this guy, he's my age, how's this 28-year-old buying so many properties so quickly back to back to back? So I started learning about his process and his insights into the industry. And I thought, man, this guy's got a peg on this industry. And of course, during ZIRP, Airbnbs were easy, making money was easy, everybody was doing it. And so I saw this interesting opportunity, decided to partner with this client of mine and another client actually. And we formed Renjoy together with our own portfolio to start.
Nice. Okay. So what is Renjoy?
Yeah. So Renjoy is kind of an unintended consequence. It was not our plan. It's a short-term rental property management business. But when we first started the company, it was just to manage our own portfolios. And people started asking us to manage theirs because short-term rentals and long-term rentals are complex and difficult and a lot of work. And so owners are constantly looking to hand over management for these things.
Yeah, and that can be a challenge. With those short-term rentals, I mean, everything has to move quick, right? You're having to check and adjust prices every day to make sure you're getting the best rate possible. You need to communicate like immediately all the time with all the guests. And then like you're trying to figure out how to make sure you're getting as many people through this property as possible, but not getting it damaged. And then maintenance stuff has to be dealt with like super fast, or people get really frustrated and upset. And so it's a difficult game. And then for people managing short-term rentals, it's almost like a cleaning talent acquisition business more than it is a property management business. And so how does Renjoy help with this stuff?
Yeah, there's so many ways we can go with this, Jason. A lot of what you were saying, resonates with me. I I think there's an increased complexity on the stakeholder relationships that we have as a manager. All property managers have this complexity where they have their tenant, who is a stakeholder. They need a tenant to pay rent, and they also need to have properties with which to have a tenant pay rent on. And so all of the property managers have this balance they have to walk between these stakeholders. They have to serve their tenants and they have to serve their landlords, their property owners. We're the
Yeah.
same, but one of the challenges is our tenants leave us reviews every single time they stay. And
Yeah.
so there's this increased, shall we say, accountability almost on how we manage our relationship with this key stakeholder, the guests that are coming to the properties, the tenants, but
Yeah.
also the owners too. And then this all leads to the same challenges all property managers have, which is balancing meeting your tenants requests for service, for maintenance, kind of meeting their expectations while also
Mm.
keeping costs as low as possible and trying to meet the owner's expectations. And you have to constantly balance that when you're thinking about maintenance and your service level agreements and how they can get impacted by the occupant versus the owner. So that's one thing that's really complex. But there's a lot of things we can get into with short-term rentals. We are a full-service short-term rental management company. This is
Mhm.
another pretty big distinction between long-term rental property managers and short-term, is that the suite of services provided varies quite a bit from one short-term rental manager to another. Not
Yeah.
to say that long-term rental managers are all the same, but generally speaking, there's a pretty similar core group of services that all long-term property managers provide for their clients.
Got it. So is Renjoy a service that those that listening that are running a property management business, are you their competitor, or is there a way that they can work with you, or how does that work?
Great question. I do not believe we're competitors. We don't do long-term rental property management, and we refer out for that. And so
Mm.
we actually kind of have a lot of good relationships with our property managers, mutual referring relationships, actually, in the markets in which we serve.
So what you're saying is long-term residential property managers, if they're not wanting to deal with the complexity of short-term property management, is there a way they can sort of partner with you
Hmm.
and maybe get paid?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a referral program. And for everybody who signs a contract with us, it's $1,000. Easy peasy. And if the property manager happens to also be a practicing broker, we actually do work to execute exclusive right to lists in our property management agreements, which is assignable. And so we just assign, should that client that you've referred to us choose to list their property, we can actually reassign that exclusive right to list back to you as the property manager slash broker.
Got it. Okay. So
So that's an
they
additional
do real
benefit.
estate, they can keep the real estate deals.
That's right. Yep.
Got
Exactly
it.
right.
Okay. So for those that are investors listening, and we have a lot of property managers, and they should be investors as well if they believe in real estate investing, right?
Mm,
And they're servicing people doing it, so they're probably investors as well. If their primary focus is long term residential management, but they're wanting to get a couple short term properties in their market, but they don't want to do
hmm
short term management, and they're buying these properties, why should they choose you to do it instead of having this side job? Or why do investors tend to choose you instead of doing it themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. In general, actually, Jason, what I would say is if you are, depending on your life and what all you have going on in your life, generally speaking, I recommend folks who are buying their first Airbnb to run it themselves.
Mm,
Because there's just a lot of things you need to learn and understand. And I actually would say the same thing about long-term rentals. I would say you as the homeowner or the property owner should try to manage it yourself because then you understand the challenges that your property manager might face and you know what to look for in a good property manager. Same thing applies for short-term rental management as well. So if your listeners are looking at acquiring their first one, my recommendation is do it, first of all. And then second of all, learn the ropes, do it yourself, understand the challenges and the complexities, and then go and shop around for a manager because it's expensive to switch.
yeah, yeah. So my wife and I, we got a short term rental so that we can do client events at it and stuff like this. So we'll bring clients in and we'll use that. And then in between, we'll use short term rental it and like send it out for other people to use, right? And so the But even with this one property, like to manage it well, we've got a whole suite of tools in order
Mhm.
to like make this efficient. And Sarah, my wife, she runs it, and she went through a whole university,
Mhm.
B&B university, and a course, and like all
Mhm.
this stuff to
Mhm.
like learn the game and learn how to do photos different than typical real estate photos, and like all
Mhm.
this stuff. And so, um, to figure everything out to get this working, and it's working really well, but it just seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of stuff.
It
So
is.
what competitive advantage do you feel like Renjoy like affords over
Mm.
people that eventually they figure out how to do all this stuff? They've got all these tools, but it still takes a bunch of time and they don't want to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's right. It is actually very complex, and it's also not static. One of the things that's different about short-term rentals is that it's constantly changing. To
Mm,
compete for acquiring the guests, meeting the demand out there, capturing the existing demand for short-term lodging, you have to be on top of your game. You can't just do the same thing you've been doing. In fact, we see quite a few property owners now who are kind of getting off that ZERP high, 2020, 2021, 2022, when people were spending like crazy, and now their properties aren't cash flowing very well. They're not capturing the demand that's in their market nearly as well because the game has changed. They're saying, "Hey, I'm doing everything the same I did before, but my revenue's going down. I don't understand why." And the
yeah.
reality is, you have to compete. You're competing with actually folks like us who have this professionalization of the industry, which I think is going on right now in short term rentals. And one of the big challenges with an individual owner operator is not only do you have to message your guests promptly, you have to make sure they check in, check out okay. You have to check for damages after the stay. You have to organize the cleaning. You have to organize the house or the maintenance. You have to do all that. But on top of that, the big thing that I see people miss is that you have to be on your pricing every day. I mean, you have
Yeah.
to not just use algorithmic based pricing with some of these tools like Price
Yeah.
Labs or Wheelhouse or something like that. You have to be doing it every day. And when you're looking at your pricing every day, you can't just look at your property. You have to compare it to all your comp sets and see, hey, who's booked on these, next 10 days and at what rates, and where do I sit in that comp set, and what do I need to do to my prices today to capture the existing demand before somebody else in my comp set captures that guest or that demand. And it's
Mm.
very, very hands on. And so one of the big advantages of a property manager like us is we have, two people full time looking at pricing for every property every day.
So, and how many properties are you guys over right now?
We manage about 165.
Yeah. And so with 165, two people are able to handle all the pricing checks
Mm-hmm.
and updates on a daily
That's
basis.
right, because not every property is unique, right? We have comp sets. So if you
Mhm.
have, let's say, 15 two-bedroom, one bath units that are all, let's say, basements or, attached ADUs, and they're all in the same geographical area, we can do a
Yeah.
lot of pricing at the same time for all 15 of those units
Mm.
because we're trying to
Right.
capture that segment of the demand.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, so for those that are listening, they're managing short-term rentals, and maybe they're not doing that one missing piece very effectively. What would you recommend that they do?
You have to. I mean, I think you have to do that, right? I mean, big part of the value proposition of a property manager for short-term rentals. This is key for all your listeners who are thinking about buying a short-term rental too.
Mm,
Short-term rental property managers are expensive. And so you want to ensure whichever manager you choose to hire is going
yeah.
to exceed or excel or expand beyond what you might otherwise earn in revenue to offset that cost. And so if there's a property manager out there doing short-term rentals and they don't have a sophisticated pricing strategy, I would say your value proposition is very weak because you're going to charge, a large percentage of commission on what's already coming in without necessarily increasing the amount of revenue coming in to offset that cost for your property owners. And I think
Mm,
you're going to end up in a tight spot when your owners aren't making enough money and another manager can increase or boost their earnings. So I would say get on it. There's no reason not to. There's a lot of access to global talent who knows how to do this kind of stuff. So it's not a lack of talent or even that they're terribly expensive. You can get a pretty good program implemented pretty easily.
okay. Well, then let's allow you to poison the well a little bit against any of your competitors. So let's talk about then how do you find and vet a good
Mm,
short-term rental management company? I mean, I've been at everybody, when they hear what I do, if I'm at a cocktail party or an event or anything, I hear people all the time, oh, I had some rental properties, but man, it was a nightmare and I got rid of them. And I'm like, maybe you should have just got a property manager. But in short term, like if they're not cash flowing or it's not making money or it's not working out, it could sometimes be the property manager, especially based on what you're saying. So what would be the biggest initial filter? Would it be that? Would it be, hey, how often are you checking the pricing on the property and what's your pricing strategy?
It's tough because you can, with anybody, they can tell you whatever they want. You have to like verify. And
Yeah.
so I would always say there are a lot of like basic ground rules questions similar to what you're saying, Jason, where, hey, tell me about your pricing strategy. Tell me about how you will price my property. Tell me about how you'll handle work orders when things come up. Like, tell me about your communication strategy with guests. Tell me about your philosophy on refunding for issues, or how you handle cancellations, or how do you handle damages. Like all of these like key components, you'll weed out a lot of crummy property managers that way. Actually, if you just go through, hey, here's the 15 core things you got to do just to be, like a worthwhile candidate for property management for me, here's the 15 main things. But to go beyond that, that's when you have to start doing things like, show me your Airbnb account that has all your reviews, and going through that list and pick, out of the last 3 months, find a bunch of reviews and ask them to explain what happened on those poor reviews. Hey, this guest said this thing happened. What happened on your end? And just literally do your due diligence on guest reviews to see how the guest stakeholders are impacted by this manager. And then
Oh,
furthermore, try to find another owner who has properties with that manager. I mean, there's kind of a reputation game here where you need to understand, hey, has this owner been with you a long time? Why are they with you? Are they happy with you? Have they considered transitioning to another manager? Kind of a lot of stuff you would expect. And it is a lot of due diligence, I will say.
mm,
But I think it has a very large impact on the performance of your property.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's significant. Um, so you've kind of built a platform for your business, correct?
Yes.
With Renjoy. And so tell us a little bit about that. How is that
Mm.
unique? Maybe some others listening might get inspired if they're doing short-term management, but explain how,
Yeah.
what kind of your, I get, maybe that's your competitive advantage.
I would say it is. And this actually, I think, Jason, would apply for all of your audience, even long term rental property managers. One of the things that
Cool.
we've been thinking really carefully about with our business as we're growing is who owns our data, our property data, our guest data, our owner data. Like, where's that data being held? And if it's being held by a third party, like our property management software provider, in our case, Guesty, in your case, Appfolio or whatever,
Uh-huh.
when you think carefully about where that data is going, you have to ask yourself, am I okay with this third party data provider being the one who's going to initiate, improvements to how we interact with our data? Am I okay
Mm,
with them developing all those features and all of that kind of stuff? Or do I want to have control over that based off of my needs and what I see in the market?
yeah.
And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but because we are more, I would say, tech focused and tech forward as a company, we've decided to keep that data in house. And so we use a third party tool called Airtable. I'm sure some of your audience members will be familiar with this tool.
Oh
And
yeah.
Airtable is
I'm a
actually
huge
where
Airtable geek.
oh, yeah, we love it.
We
We
run our
use it.
business off of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We do too. And so we use our property management software because you need it, right? We
Mm,
use it to handle our reservation data, all the calendars, kind of. It's where we actually push all of our listings to market them to acquire the guests, and all of our
mhm,
reservation data flows through there as well. But it all flows from our property management software tool into Airtable, and some of it flows back and forth. But what it allows us to do is we can pull in all of our work orders from another software. We can pull in all of our accounting from another software. We can pull in whatever kind of data we want into Airtable, and we can relate the data in ways that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do if you're using a single tool. So, for example, Guesty, our property management software, has work orders in it. It has review management in it. It has
mhm,
accounting in it. It has everything in it. But the problem is, if you use the full suite of services within your main software provider, your property management software provider, typically each of
yeah.
those ancillary services are not best in class. And so you end up with kind of like you're constrained on what you can do with the tool that you have. And we very much want to be constrained with
Mm.
our own kind of creativity and our own ability to create efficiency in our business.
It's kind of
So
like you've got a Swiss Army knife or one of those multi-tools, and it's not the same as having a toolbox of high
that's
quality
right.
tools.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but it's complicated and it's costly. I mean, you have to be able to build your own, have like specific specialized tools. You then have to know what you're doing to accumulate those tools and have them all talking and speaking to each other. But if you do it right, it's very powerful.
Got it. Okay. So, and you're using Guesty as PM software, and then you've paired it up sort of with Airtable. It's feeding data into Airtable, and then because you have it in Airtable, you're able to probably notice patterns more, run reports with the data. You then can create automations and things that happen from, Airtable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe are you using Zapier
Oh, of course. Yeah,
as
we use
well? Yeah.
Zapier and Make as well
Yeah.
for certain things. We also do have a little bit of Python scripting, but it's very
Wow.
minimal.
That's getting
Yeah,
really nerdy. So,
yeah. It's not me. Let's put it that way. It's not me doing it.
right.
But let me give you an example, Jason, of how these things work together and are really powerful.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of our housekeepers are actually in house now. They're W-2s. They're paid hourly. One of the big challenges is you can't have a manager inspect every single turnover. I mean, we had like 72 cleans in a single day on Labor Day weekend. So there's no
Yeah.
way you can cost effectively have somebody inspect every single clean. Like it's just not possible.
Right.
And so how do you hold cleaners accountable? How do you actually rank them? How do you know whether they're doing a good job or not? Other than after the fact, the next guest says, "Hey, this place is terrible."
Right.
Well, what we actually do is we do that. Where the review is generated from a guest day. Okay. And if that review mentions any kind of cleanliness issue or whatever, the review is an object in Airtable, then gets linked to the person that is the cleaner who's also in Airtable. And we can say, hey, who cleaned before this review and who cleaned after this review? And we can actually tag that review and tie it to the cleaner, the person, and we can rank them. And so we can say this person has an overall ranking of 4.9 out of 5 on their cleanings over the last however many cleans. We can actually go back and look at every single turnover they did and
Mm.
what was the guest report afterwards. And by that, we can eliminate cleaners who are not doing a good job. Anybody below 4.9, you just eliminate and then you refill that pipeline.
Yeah.
And by having that connection, it's really, really powerful. That accountability happens way faster. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to speed it up.
Right, because you have the data, you've got the timestamp of the review. You can then check who was the cleaner before this review, and figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can
It's
link to the cleaner, and then you've got a database of all your cleaners, I'm sure, in
mm-hmm.
Airtable, and
That's
then
right.
all the cleaners in Airtable. You've got these cross links to all their
Mm-hmm.
reviews that are affiliated with them, and then you've got a rating that you can see, and so each cleaner is rated in your system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're connecting the reviews to the cleaners.
Mm-hmm.
So with that data, you're able to make much faster decisions as to whether, and it's not just like, the really noisy, greasy, squeaky wheels that you're kind of paying attention to. Wow, this cleaner is really horrible. Who did this? You're able to just look at it almost like a spreadsheet and see, all right, these cleaners are performing at the top. These are not so much. We're going to send more work to these. These ones maybe less, and these ones are gone.
Yeah, that's right. You gamify it too. They enjoy it. I mean, there's a little bit of friendly competition too, because what we do
Okay.
is we display with a dashboard, hey, who are the top 10 cleaners this month? Or like it's actually a live dashboard. So like, hey, who are the
Yeah.
top 10 cleaners? We have 35 or 40 cleaners. And so, if you're not on the top 10, you're not on the top 10. But those who are on the top
Yeah.
10 are constantly competing with each other to be the best. And there's a
Ooh.
lot of shuffling going on. So
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
that's
Mm.
just one example. There's a lot of things where if you own the data, you can connect it and gain insights in ways you would not otherwise gain from a lot of tools because the people who build the software are not managing property. So they don't know what you're trying to understand about your property. They just say, oh, you need accounting? Here's some accounting. It's like, well, but they don't understand the complexities around trust accounting and how I'm spending money on behalf of the owner. So they don't make it easy for me to send and receive invoices within their accounting software. I have to do that outside. Then I have to reconcile it with their trust accounting module. like they just don't understand what you're doing, and so their tools are often pretty weak.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love Airtable, man. We geek out on it. We use it for our client success database. We use it for our
Mm-hmm.
planning system. We built DoorGrow OS
Mm-hmm.
in it. We built our applicant tracking system and hiring system in it. And we built a bunch of stuff in it. Oh, looks like we lost Jacob. We'll see if he pops back in here. So if you're a property manager and you're using Airtable, then let me know. Like, reach out to me. I'd be curious to see what kind of things other property managers are doing in order to leverage Airtable and how they're using this in their business. I know there's some out there doing it. I've seen it in some of the groups, and they're leveraging Airtable to keep track of things. So, all right, Jacob's back with us. Welcome back.
Hey, sorry about that. I definitely just X'd out of it. My bad.
Yeah, no worries. I made a call to people that are using Airtable to have them reach out to me, because I would love to see. I would love, if you're open, I'd love to see the cool stuff you're doing, and I can
Yeah.
show you some of the cool stuff I'm doing. I'll show you mine if you show
Yeah.
me yours. I love
Do
Airtable.
you want to go first? You want me to go?
No, well, not right now, but like we'll
Oh,
we'll
okay.
do that. We'll do that outside of this. So yeah. So,
No
but
problem.
anyway, yeah, really, Airtable is really cool. Basically, for those that aren't familiar with Airtable, on the surface it looks like a Google Sheet, sort of. But the difference is it's beyond just spreadsheets. It's a database software, and really, it's now considered no code software, because to have software, you need input, you need data storage, and then you need output. And so you can build in Airtable forms or things to enter data, or you can even connect it to Zapier or other automation softwares or tools to feed data into it. So you have input, and then you have data storage, and you can build really complicated databases of stuff where things are cross-linked. And then based on that, then you can create dashboards or extensions or output or feed data to other systems based on that data. And so, so there's some really cool stuff that you can do with Airtable. So, yeah. So give me another example of something cool that you do in Airtable that you think is maybe relevant to property managers.
Yeah. We actually incorporated our CRM into Airtable. And the main reason for that is because,
Oh,
especially
Airtable
with short-term,
is your CRM?
yeah,
Okay, got it.
there are some limitations with it, of course, but because we're not doing like really mass marketing. We have really good lists, and so we're not targeting like a ton of people because it's very B2B.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily want everybody short-term rental. Like, we're very particular on which properties we want to manage. So anyway, one of the benefits of it is when you're going through the sales process, right? A lot of that process is discovery of property data, not just owner data, owner problems, whatever. It's also property data. And so we notice this huge inefficiency in a lot of sales processes where the salespeople learn all about the property, they get them signed, and then they hand them off, and they don't communicate all of the things that they learned about the property. Right. And then you have to relearn, and the owner's like, oh, I already told you this. Like, now I have to tell you about this furnace again, and this AC unit again, and this hot water heater, and this thing about the backyard, and this thing about the sprinkler, this thing about the neighbor, this thing about the, like, there's just on and on. It's a lot of work for the owner. And so what we've done is we've built that data intake, to your whole point about what software is for. That data intake that the salesperson is collecting through the whole process gets built into the system, so that when that lead converts, that opportunity converts into a client, all of that data goes straight into, that's been collected, goes straight into the property data, and the onboarding team just has to fill in the gaps. And so it really smooths the transition of data from sales to operations.
Yeah, I've done some. We sync and merge our CRM, our sales CRM, which is our tool for communication, and our text, email, phone, everything feeds through our CRM with our existing clients, with prospective clients, all that. But we have it synced to our client success database for our existing clients that are in our mastermind and our coaching programs. and it feeds data across. So for example, we like to track how many doors our clients have. We have them complete a weekly check-in form via Airtable, and they're providing their monthly revenue, their door count. So we capture this data and we use this to build what we call proof bombs later that are like visual testimonials that people can absorb in seconds, which is an idea I learned from Sharon Srivastava, which is the CEO of Real, and brilliant guy. And he taught this to Alex Hormozy. Alex Hormozy used it in his book launch as showing all these people getting results. And so we have the data to prove that our clients are getting results over time, and we can show the time period. So it just feels more credible. And that data syncs over to our CRM and updates their door count, updates these things. So when we're talking with them in the CRM, we can communicate with them. And so we're always geeking out and optimizing our system, our client success database, everything, so that we can better take care of our clients. Like we have a photo of every client's face in our database, so we can learn who they are and know who they are and know their names. So when they show up on a call, we recognize them. And yeah, so we stalk them a little bit to get a photo, or we capture their face on one of the Zoom calls that they show up on or something. But my team are responsible to make sure every client we have a photo, we have their name, we know their current door count, we know what they're working on. And yeah. And then, yeah, we've got some other really cool things that we've done recently as well. So we're always improving this. And because our key system we run our entire business on is called DoorGrow OS. It's a planning system that we've built out in Airtable. We coach clients on how to do this as well. And it really, I believe, is our greatest competitive advantage.
So do you like white label Airtable instance for those clients?
So what we do with our clients is we have an enterprise Airtable account, and then we create or duplicate some of our proprietary Airtables that we built for clients.
Can I give them access to these? I think this is brilliant. I actually think if there's any property managers out there who are thinking about this, the value that Jason's offering actually through pre-building or pre-packaging an Airtable setup on how your processes should flow according to best practices, that's actually extremely valuable. It's fascinating that you're doing that, Jason, because we've been thinking about it ourselves for short-term.
So we haven't really built the process system because we partner with Flusos, another company that has this brilliant flowchart process software. Because I think there's 3 levels of process I've talked about, but the level 1 is process documentation, which is really shitty because people don't really read processes. It's like the owner's manual in the glove box of your car, right? Then there's the next level is checklist. And that's okay. We've used Process Street, stuff like that in the past. Some will use Lead Simple. Checklist has its own inherent flaws that the more complicated the process, the more only one person understands how to change it or edit it or make it work. And then there's like the third level, which is visual workflow. And this is where everybody understands it and they're clear on it. I don't see it on the calendar now. So I don't know. My wife's checking on me, make sure I'm doing my job right. So, yeah, so I think, so visual workflow, what that's done is it's allowed me, the nerd, to not have to do processes anymore. My team all understand them, they can see them, and they can be crazy complicated because it's like playing with Lucidchart or Visio. And that's where the processes are built. So that's been a game changer for us. But everything else, like our planning system, and our hiring system, this is where I think Airtable really magically shines because we can custom tailor their hiring system for particular needs. Like we have a client who's adding like 114 doors in like a month or two, or like he's just has this ridiculous. And so his biggest constraint is hiring maintenance technicians. And he lost 2. He had 4. So now he was down to 2. He got on a call with me, and he was using our DoorGrow ATS, our applicant tracking system. And we talked with him about cloning the application form, reducing it to get more maintenance text to flow through, reducing the difficulty, and then giving them working interviews. And my coaching for him was, you need to be probably hiring 4 techs a month and firing 2 or 3.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Testing them out, which is very different. And so I explained to him, I was like, you are no longer a property management business because your business now, your biggest constraint, your business now is, and you need to swallow this pill, that your business now is a maintenance talent acquisition company. And once he like owns that, then he'll move on to another level boss in the video game of business, you know. But that's the business he's in now. It was originally, it was like, oh, we're in the business of trying to get clients, and then he was in the business of trying to deal with getting on clients, and now it's maintenance, right? Technician and hiring and keeping that going. So just like short-term rentals is largely a game of cleaning and hiring
No,
cleaners,
I mean, we have a
and managing
full-time
cleaners.
recruiter. Yeah, we have a full-time recruiter. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a constant pipeline of cleaners. Same with maintenance techs. I mean, it is. And you have to be shedding them just like you shed property owners too sometimes.
Yeah. We also built a rental property analysis tool that our clients use with real estate agents in Airtable. We had some programmers do some custom coding to do some of the more complex formulas that you can't do in Airtable, like amortization schedules and stuff like this. And so they're able to create these really cool one-page like reports for a rental property that are branded with their branding and have their pricing built into it as a property manager, that they can give the real estate agents that are working with investors or working on deals or trying to attract investors, that they can then put on their rental listings to show how that property could either cash flow or in the long run would be a better investment than maybe investing in the stock market. So
it's a great idea. We do something similar. Again, part of our sales process is when a lead converts to an opportunity, we basically have this template pro forma that gets generated from fields within Airtable, but it's a Google Sheet template. So it allows us to do more with what we want in the Google Sheet, because it's not just a single page. It's, there's quite a few pages, because short-term rentals are very complex in terms of setting them up. Your setup costs, your startup costs are quite large. And having a reliable, accurate number for startup costs is actually remarkably difficult with Airbnbs. So similar process, you end up with kind of the same result. Here's an accurate projection.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, maybe we'll have to hang out outside and geek out on some Airtable stuff. So, but this has been our competitive advantage largely is our planning system and cadence of annual planning, quarterly planning, monthly planning, and I have a database where it's all cross-linked. And so we in our system, team members and clients that use this, their team members show up, and we're keeping track of all the wins. So there's this culture of winning, and nobody wants to show up getting a red no on their weekly commitments. They want to get a green yes. And so this is outside of our daily tactical stuff. This is our strategic goals. And so it gets my entire team focused on innovation, on moving towards goals and outcomes, moving the business forward, instead of just their daily tactical work, which we're using DoorGrow Flow or Flusos, that visual workflow tool. And so that's allowed us to, I think that's our strongest competitive advantage, is that other businesses, usually the entrepreneur comes in, throws out a bunch of goals and ideas, and it's like pulling the pin on a grenade after they get back from a conference to their team, and their team are like trying to do their tactical daily work, and they're like, how are we going to do all this? And there's no real plan or clarity, and they rarely achieve any of their goals or outcomes that they're aiming for. And we, on a weekly basis, our goal is, we have sometimes somewhere between 30 to 50 commitments between everyone on my executive team that they've committed to that week that are going towards our 30-day goals.
That's right.
And we get, at least our goal is to hit 80%. And we do that with consistency now, years. And 80% of our goals, and which means our 30-day goals are largely almost always achieved, and which means our quarterly goals are almost always achieved, and annually we tend to hit our goals. And so we move really fast. We get a lot of stuff done, and we innovate a lot in our coaching business. And I don't think there's, and I work with some of the best coaches in the industry. So we've really built something, I think, that's pretty amazing. And we roll out new things like every month. And that innovation that system has allowed us to innovate. And the way we've set up DoorGrow OS, and Sarah runs this, she's our operator, and my wife, she's always like, we vote on things, we get feedback on things, and she's like, not you, Jason, you're last. Like, I'm always last to speak, so I don't end up as the emperor with no clothes in my own business. So, yeah. So anyway, Airtable is pretty cool. So, Yeah, that'd be interesting to see if there's some other ways in which our clients could leverage or use Airtable for keeping track of their own clients, because that's not something that we've really played around much with. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, Jacob, any how for those that are interested in getting their property managed by you, which markets do you cover, and how do they get a hold?
Yeah, so we do have full service management in Colorado, kind of southern Colorado, so south of Denver, Colorado
Mm-hmm.
Springs, and then further west. And we also manage in Gulf Coast, Florida, between Tampa Bay and Fort Myers. So we're in these two geographic areas for full service. But going back to the pricing thing, we've realized that there are a lot of property owners who love the hospitality side of the Airbnbs, but not the pricing side. That's not why they got
Yeah.
into it. We actually do have a pricing service where
Mm,
we market and distribute your listing on a bunch of different booking channels. So a lot of people are seeing your listing, and we do the daily pricing for your property, so you don't have to do that. And then you do the cleaning, the maintenance, and the interaction with the guest. You take care of the property. It's your account. They're your reviews. They're your guests. We don't interact with them. And that is a global service.
Oh, so that's a service that property managers could use, self-managers
Yes.
could
Mm-hmm.
use.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah. In
great.
fact, we do have some small property managers using it. Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So, how does that work?
Yeah, so it really depends on the client. Like with a property manager, and some property managers are for their own portfolios. Some, are managing for others. It really depends on the property situation and the setup that's currently in place. But the most common thing is there's an owner operator who says, "Hey, I don't want to do the pricing. I'm getting crushed by my competitors because I'm not doing this algorithmic based pricing and I'm not reviewing it daily." So we come in and we say, "Okay, great. I see you're on Airbnb, or I see you're on VRBO, or I see you're just on Airbnb and VRBO." What we do is we come in and we create a bunch more booking channels for you, and we aggregate it into a white labeled property management software. It's not Guesty, actually. It's a different software tool. So the owner only has one place to go for their calendar, for their messaging. It's all in one place. They don't have to do anything. And then
Oh,
we create those listings, and then we market them, and then we continue to price them on an ongoing basis and to reset their prices to compete in whichever market they're in.
got it. And is this a fairly affordable service? So they're
It
still
is. Yes, it's very low cost compared to full service short-term rental management, and it also doesn't have any like contracts or anything. It's just day to day.
okay. Devil's
And then the other,
advocate. What
mhm.
some listening might be like, well, why would I trust them to price my property when they might have properties in my market? Like if they're in a market that you're in, like Colorado, what if they're going to price theirs better or more competitively than my own? Is that an
That's a
issue?
great question. Yeah, no, it's a great question. And actually, it's related to kind of one of the things that we set out strategically for our market, like Colorado Springs. We manage about 120 properties in Colorado Springs out of about 3,000 Airbnbs. And we kind of set our market cap at about, or sorry, as large our market saturation at about 200 units in the Springs. So we
Mm,
actually won't go above managing 200 properties in Colorado Springs for this very reason, the cannibalizing
mm,
of market share. Now that gets even more detailed, where it's not just properties total, but also comp sets. So if we have more than, let's say, 10% of the 2 bedroom properties in Colorado Springs, we're going to start cannibalizing our own market. And so we
mm,
actually have limits on the sizes of properties within our
got
specific
it.
markets.
Yeah,
So
wouldn't have
right
expected
now we
that.
actually we're pretty darn close to being capped out at 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. So we don't
Yeah,
really take on those units anymore.
got it. Just 10 bedrooms now.
Yeah, that's right. Three, four, five, six. We don't have any tens. We have a nine, but that's the biggest.
Yeah. You're not in some giant family reunion markets.
No, we are. Manitou Springs. I mean, that place sleeps. Talking to a lady now, she's got a place that sleeps 60. So
Yeah.
that would be a family reunion for sure.
Well, cool. So that sounds like an interesting service. Maybe I'll have Sarah check it out. So, because I know she's checking the pricing every day. I think she kind of enjoys it
Good.
though.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, if you enjoy it, then we are not, like it's for people who it's like pulling teeth, right? Like I hate
Yeah.
doing this. I don't, or I'm not like really into the whole game theory around pricing. Like that doesn't interest me, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to have her do a demo with you guys and see how it compares to what she's doing and whether she would trust it or not. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I mean,
I'm
if she's
guessing
checking it every day, Jason, she's probably doing, she's already
like
like
doing all right.
85% of the way there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think it's interesting. There's, there's a lot of property managers that do short-term rentals that they're not doing anything like this,
No.
and they just not, and they basically set it sort of at a rate that's similar, and maybe occasionally they'll adjust it, but they're trying to just let it happen. And yeah, and then the owners get frustrated because they're like, why isn't this renting out as often? Or,
Yeah.
or
It's this
it's renting out a
passive.
lot, but why am I not getting paid very much?
Yeah. It's this passive versus active approach, right? I always tell
Mm,
owners, like, hey, there's two kinds of demand. There's existing demand for short-term lodging. These are people who are coming to your market no matter what. They're already coming. Now they're looking for lodging. But there's a second kind of demand that's really important, which is the generated demand. These are people who aren't coming to your market and wouldn't otherwise come to your market if you hadn't reached out to them first. So you're generating demand by marketing, essentially. And so we have a pretty sophisticated system for marketing to very specific or very likely customers to then book and come and stay because of your property that they wouldn't otherwise have come. And so that's a really big distinction with a lot of property managers. They just look at existing demand and try to capture their share of existing demand versus
mm,
generating net new demand. So, as an example of how we do this, we require our owners to have our tech package in their property. And part of what is included in that tech package is a commercial Wi-Fi router system. So every guest, not just the one who books the property, but every guest who comes to the property and wants to access the internet has to give us their phone and email. And so
okay.
we build a massive database for marketing towards for guests, direct guest marketing.
Wow. Okay.
A lot of managers don't do that.
So, the managers out there that would these pieces, they don't even enjoy doing it, like the advanced pricing service, and maybe there's some other little things you could help them with as well. Um, they can reach out to you and
Mm-hmm.
get this. And you mentioned white label. Does that mean they're able to still maintain their brand and people
Mm-hmm.
aren't seeing your business name? And yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
okay, very cool. Yeah, cool. Anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
The only thing I want to share with all the property managers out there is keep on doing the hard work. The For those who are outside of the industry, they don't understand the challenge, the beat down that can be property management. So just keep it up and
Mm,
do the good work that it is.
yeah, it can be challenging. Cool. Well, all right. Thanks for. Oh, we just had somebody jump on. I don't know who that was. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. Until next time, everybody. Until next time, to our mutual growth. If you're interested in getting connected with Jacob, how do they reach you?
Just go to www.renjoy.com and just fill out a form, and you'll get a hold of me.
Okay, awesome. Well, then, if reach out to them, and then if you are interested in growing your property management business and scaling it and getting some support in how to reach out and attract more owners to do third-party management, check us out at doorgrow.com, and make sure to join our free Facebook group at doorgrowclub.com. All right, thanks, Jacob, and bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jason.